Hello. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about artificial intelligence, about AI. Why? Well, partly because everybody's talking about it, but mainly because everybody's using it. People are using it in areas where it's really well suited, but they're also using it in areas where it's not quite so well suited. And unfortunately, many of those areas overlap with the areas that Essence is concerned, about creating successful teams, about practices, methods, and ways of working. So I'd like to understand how Essence can help you get better value from your AI and why Essence plus AI is a far stronger proposition than just using AI on its own. But first, I'd like to take a step back in history. So it turns out there's quite a heritage in AI for Ivar Jakobsen. In 2000, his company Jackson had a product called Waypointer, which at its time was cutting edge with artificial intelligence. It won lots of awards, and it was all about helping you navigate the complexities of the rational unified process. And it did that very well, but it wasn't a success. And the reason it wasn't a success was because it was all about the rational unified process, so when it fell from favour, Waypointer wasn't useful anymore. But that failure taught Ivar a lot, and in fact, it's led to a lot of the structure and the way that Essence works about being a generic common ground and about being agnostic of practice. So there's a lot of history of AI built into Essence, and Essence is already designed for better use of AI today. What about AI today then? Well, we all know where it's used, and we probably have all used it ourselves, and it's great for lots of things. It's good for coding and testing, it's great with language, but it is not so good for more complex, judgment-based, nuanced human behaviour. The kind of behaviour that we see and need to navigate in teams and with our people. Now, we can improve that a little bit with better prompts and with custom GPTs, but we're still dependent on really good source data. And we're also really dependent on knowing when it hallucinates, because unfortunately one of the things we do know is that it will hallucinate. So what's going on here? Let's think about that for a second. So ChatGPT has got a huge array of training data, but it's got no boundaries. It doesn't know what you're asking it. It just looks to its training data and it gives you the best answer it can. So when it's facing complex tasks or more nuanced judgment, it's more prone to hallucinations and it's less likely to give you an accurate answer that you can really trust. And it's because it's been trained in this vast array. It's a bit like having a football team and you give them a ball and you say, go play football, but you don't give them any rules. They've got no boundaries, they don't know where the edge of the pitch is, they don't know where the goals are, they're just doing stuff. And sometimes they'll do stuff that looks like great football, but sometimes they might not. So what we can do with Essence is provide that boundary. So Essence provides that common ground. It gives you the rules, it gives you the structure, and because Essence has a language and a semantics for each practice, in addition to the actual descriptions of the practice, that semantics means that you can provide exactly the playground and the structure and the boundaries and the domains and the arena that artificial intelligence needs. So let's look at what that means in practice. So imagine we've got a team of coaches, expert in all the practices that we have, expert in the practices that we have access to but don't use today, and also very knowledgeable about our team. And they're accessed through Essence Workbench, and our team has access to them. It can ask them questions, it can get answers it trusts. And the coach remembers what's going on with the team. It knows all about the practices that the team has access to, it knows about the practices they've used, it knows how well they're doing with them as well, it knows the state they're in. And with that information, it can take their questions and create games and serious gameplay that helps them get the best result, the best insights from their interactions with the artificial intelligence. But there's other data too. We've got things like the team transcripts, we might have information on tickets and requirements from Jira or GitHub, we might have information on meetings from Zoom or Teams, so that we know all kinds of extra things about how well our team is performing, not just what Essence Workbench tells us, but also what other third-party tools tell us. And finally, especially if we've got well-designed practices, we can actually get some of the work done for us. If the artificial intelligence understands how to create good work products or to test whether the work products that we've created are the right ones, we can get quite a lot of help and support from creating our work as well. So let's think again about some of the challenges that we talked about. So team ways of working are complex human endeavours. It's hard for us to get good results from AI with that. we get variable performance, some good stuff, some bad stuff, partly because we've got this huge array of training data that has trained the LLMs, the large language models. Some of that training data is great, but just as you and I will have met good and bad coaches and good and bad managers, so too does the training data contain good and bad advice. And then when we interact with it, we're typically interacting on a one-on-one basis with text. I ask it a question, I read the answer. You ask it a question, you read the answer. One-to-one interactions. But that's not really how teams work. Teams don't work as individuals, teams work as teams, especially when they're engaged in complex endeavours. So when we look at where Essence can really help us with AI, it's in these 4 areas. It helps us focus on the essentials, on practices, on collaboration, and on progress. So let's think a little bit about what that means. So when we focus on the essentials, Essence helps us break down our method into individual practices, and it helps break down our practices into individual elements. So we can really get a laser-like precision on what we're asking questions about. But more than that, the semantics of Essence makes those questions have stronger meaning. We know how our elements are connected to one another, we know what the purpose of things are, we know the connections, and we can focus on that. What that gives us is the ability to get much better answers from our AI. It gives us better answers to the questions we ask it, more precise and more concise. Thinking about the collaboration, Workbench helps us with collaboration. We've talked in other videos about serious games and about gameplay and the value that brings us in terms of not just the quality of our insights and our answers, but also more creativity, more engagement, and generally better results. So when we bring gameplay and serious games into our interactions with artificial intelligence, we get better results through that collaboration. So we move away from text one-to-one and we move into multi-team interactions, including collaborative play. When our AI service understands about practices, it understands more about the context of the team. It understands what practices we're using, so asking a question about Scrum when I'm also using user stories or test-driven development, it can answer that question with that context. Similarly, it knows the practices I've got access to but aren't using, so it might be bringing in that information into its question. So when we combine a practice view, we get insights that we've got a lot more trust in, not just that they're accurate, but they're actionable. We know that what it's suggesting to us is more likely to be something that we can actually do. It's not just a random suggestion from its training data. And finally, a well-designed practice can help us progress our work, and it can accelerate that progress by doing some of the work for us. It can create models, it can mark our homework, it can look at our results and say whether or not that's a good set of actors for our use cases or whether that's a good set of product goals or sprint goals for our sprint. So we can use AI to help accelerate our team's progress. So these are 4 of just many ways that adding Essence to AI really improves what we get in terms of value from our AI. By focusing on the essentials, we get better answers. By focusing on collaboration, we get better results and more innovation, more creativity. Focusing on practice gives us more trustworthy insights that we know we can action. And focus on progress helps us to accelerate the work of our team. So that kind of gives us a flavour of where we are with AI today and why AI plus Essence is far stronger than just AI on its own when it comes to engineering endeavours.